The lamp of the temple had not gone out yet. Imagine, if you will, the scene in the temple that evening when Samuel and the old man Eli were going to bed. Eli was the old man, the man of God, who was the judge of Israel at that time. This was long, long, long ago in the Bible, long before Jerusalem, long before King David, when all they had was a house of God at Shiloh that they used as a temple. Eli, the old man, had a little boy named Samuel to be his helper. And the little boy lived at the temple with Eli. The little boy was probably about Marley's age, just a young boy. And on this particular evening, Eli has gone to bed in his room, and Samuel, the little boy, has laid down to sleep in the temple because there's no place else for him to sleep. And the lamp of the temple has not gone out yet. The lamp is lit every night. It's a little oil lamp. It gives light until all the oil is burned up and then it goes out. But it's still early yet. And the lamp of the temple is still shining. You can see the shadows flicker on the walls and on the ceiling. The little boy is lying there waiting to go to sleep. It's peaceful. And then the little boy, Samuel, hears a voice calling his name. Samuel! Samuel! So he gets up from his bed and he runs into the other room and says to the old man, "Here I am, for you called me." The old man said, "I didn't call you, my son. Go back to bed." So the little boy goes back into the temple and lies down on his pallet on the floor there, and he waits to go to sleep. Here's the voice again. "Samuel! Samuel!" He's a good boy. He's been trained to be obedient. So he gets up, goes over to the old man Eli in his room, and he says, "Here I am, for you called me." This time the old man was a little grumpy. "I didn't call you, my son. Stop waking me up. Go back to bed." So the boy goes back to bed. Lies there, watching the shadows on the ceiling, waiting. The voice comes the third time. "Samuel, Samuel." The boy gets up again. He goes into the old man's room and says again, "Here I am, for you called me." This time, the old man realizes that something is happening here. One time, 2 times, it might be a mistake, it might be just a coincidence, but 3 times, something is going on here. This must be of God. So Eli realizes that this is God calling the little boy. He says to him, "Go back and lie down. This time, when you hear the voice, say this, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel goes back to his bed again, lies down, and sure enough, the voice comes again. "Samuel, Samuel." And the boy, even though he's frightened and doesn't know what's going to happen, he says, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." God gives him the message to give to Eli. It's a difficult message to hear, but he gives it to this little boy, and the little boy receives it. Well, it seems like when God calls us, it often takes us a little while to understand that it's really God calling us and what God is trying to say to us. Sometimes it takes a while. Many of my seminary classmates said that they felt called to go into the ministry, but they weren't sure yet. They asked, they prayed about it, but they weren't sure. It took a while, but the call kept coming. And eventually they had to give into it because it just wouldn't give up. One of my friends was Charlie Barton. He was a young man, about 40, and he had a little business that he ran doing high-end renovations in buildings, and he'd come back to church and with his family, his 2 sons, and he'd been getting more active, and he kind of felt a tug to go into the ministry, to become a priest. But he kept saying, no, I don't want to do that. That would mess up my whole life. I'm not ready for that. One summer he took a vacation with some friends to Mexico. They were somewhere around the Mazatlan area, that on the coast there. And one day they decided they're going to go up and visit this old colonial church that was up in the mountains. So they took a taxi and they went up the switchbacks into this beautiful old church and went to the church and started back down, got the taxi, and the taxi started going down these switchbacks, and the driver was a maniac. He was driving as fast as he could, skidding around every corner, and there was a cliff right below the road. And Charlie said, I'm dead. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to survive this taxi ride. And so he prayed to God, and he heard God speak to him in his ears. He said, Charlie, go to seminary. So Charlie knew then that the call was for real. It took a while, but he got it. It took a while in my case too. I like Charlie, a young man, had come back to church. I had 2 sons just like Charlie. And I started getting more involved in the church. I taught Sunday school. I was on the bishop's committee. I helped the priest in worship, and I had some powerful experiences of God in the Eucharist. Little tiny church about the same size as St. Germain's, in a little town in Alaska on an island. I really loved this little church. Our sons were both baptized there, and it was really an important place for me. And some people said, you make a good priest. I said, no. You got to be called to be a priest. Someone else said, you ever thought about going into the ministry? I said, no, you got to be called to go into the ministry. So I didn't think too much about it. But, I had been wondering how long I was going to keep working at the shipyard. There was a little fishing boat shipyard there, because I'd kind of come to the end of my potential there, and I was just kind of doing the same things over and over, but I hadn't really thought about it much. And one summer I went back to visit my mother in Colorado, like I did every summer, and on the way back to Alaska, I was on the plane reading this book called Future Shock. And the book is about how the future is going to be way different than what we've imagined. And it sort of hit me. I said, maybe they're right. Maybe I should check into this ministry thing. Maybe God is calling me. So when I got back, I started asking questions, and the doors started to open. The priest encouraged me. The bishop approved me. The Commission on Ministry gave me a pass. And so before I knew it, we were selling the house and selling the cars and the trucks and the boats. And we were on our way to seminary in Tennessee. It took me a while, but I finally heard the call. Another unexpected or another call that took a while was a man in my last parish. His name was Jim, and when I first got there, it wasn't long after that I visited him in the hospital. He was having an operation to take out his thyroid, which had become cancerous. So I had a good visit, and he recovered and came home. But a year or two later, he was going back to that same hospital for a follow-up visit. And he'd been thinking about what God was calling him to do, and he really didn't know quite what God was expecting of him. So as he was driving to the hospital, and he got near the hospital, pulled off I-5, and there was a guy standing on the corner there, homeless, asking for money. And he thought, maybe God is calling me to give him some money. But you know how it is, you're driving before you know it, you're passing, and you can't go back because of the traffic. And so he took a right turn and another right, and he circled back so he'd go by the man again. And he got money out so he could hand him money. And when he got to the corner, the man was gone. So he thought, well, what is God calling me to do? And then in his mind, immediately it came into his mind something that I had said the previous Sunday. I'd said, we need a treasurer for our church. So if God is calling you to be a treasurer, let me know. And he thought, that's it. God's calling me to be the treasurer. And so he contacted me, and he was a great treasurer. Still the treasurer there. It's been about 10 years or more. So God calls us. God calls us in various ways to do various things. Sometimes we hear it and we disregard it. God keeps calling, just like he called that little boy Samuel. Keeps tugging at us until finally we answer and we say, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.